What is going on, guys? We are back with another episode of the Strong and Sexy Show.
We strong and we sexy out here.
I'm Strong, and this is
Miss Sexy.
I'm Mr. Strong, and
I'm
this
Mr.
is Sexy.
Yeah.
And we got a banger of an episode for you guys today. This is something that we've been wanting to talk about for quite some time. But before we get into it, guys, make sure that you guys subscribe to the show. You know,
Leave us a 5-star review.
Leave us a comment if you get sub from it. Leave us a 5-star review as well if you're on Spotify or Apple Music. It helps the show grow.
Yeah.
So we can continue to give you guys high quality episodes like we're about to get into right fucking now. So today's episode: should I compete?
Ooh. This is good because it's summertime and everyone's like, I'm shredded enough. Let me fucking step on stage.
Should I step on stage?
Yeah.
I've been fit. I'm trying to get fit. Should I step on stage? I should do a show. I want to do a show. I want to do this shit, right? Yeah, I should do it.
So easy, right? Until you start peeling off the layers.
Guys, first and foremost, when it comes to competing, guys, there's so many things that you need to consider before you get started.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things is, a lot of people think, a lot of guys that I've talked to, they think like, oh, I just, I need to, do a show so I can get it in shape.
Yeah.
Or like, I need to do this so that way, I can step on stage, or I want to get shredded, so I should like step on stage, whatever. And that's cool. Like if your goal is just to like step on stage, great. If your goal is to be competitive, you know what I'm saying? You might want to reconsider. Now, before I get into this, guys, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So before I ever stepped on stage, I trained my ass off for, over 5 years before I stepped on stage. The first show that I did, I got first place in my class and got very close to winning the overall. 4 weeks later, I ended up winning like 3 first places in that show. That was my first NPC show. It was an untested show. I won my class. I won the novice overall. And then I battled it out for the overall and open, but I won my open class. And that was when I was natty against, untested athletes, So then I went on to the national level where I placed 3rd at my first national show. And then I went again to another national show where I placed 1st and got my pro card. So from someone who's done this the right way, I want to say like there's levels to this shit. And, if your goal is just to step on stage and like just show your physique, great. But if you want to be competitive, understand that you need to take the time to really build your physique up. You want to try to build a pro looking physique before you try to get a quote pro card. If your goal is to win a show, then you need to consider like what it takes to have a winning look. A lot of guys think like, and especially with the way that social media is nowadays, everybody's like so open about, using performance enhancing drugs. And people think, oh, well, that's the only way that I can be competitive in this sport, when the reality is the people who are winning this sport have mature muscle. So if you're young listening to this, understand that you got to build that muscle up. Don't just think that injecting, steroids in your ass is gonna, get you first place, because it's not. It's really not. And from someone who's beat a lot of guys who were, running a bunch of gear when I wasn't, just take it from me. Like you just need to take the time to build. So, first and foremost, the first thing that I would just say is like, ask yourself why you're competing before you start getting into the sport. Don't just jump into it blindly because you think that you're going to be this great athlete in something that you've never done. And you might find out that you're, get a little disappointed when you get up there and you've been competing against guys who've been really about this life for a long time. Bodybuilding, especially for men, is a grown man's game, period. It's not for kids. It's not.
That's so true though. Cause like I've seen so many shows and like, you can just tell if someone's like new.
Yeah.
It's like they barely have any muscle compared to everyone else that's like on stage that are really like deep into it. So yeah, you can see the difference.
Yeah. Facts. It's like, it's all about muscle maturity. It's all about development of the physique and that shit. Like no matter what you're taking, no matter, how good your diet is, no matter how much cardio you're doing, you can't really you can't really beat time unless you have like amazing genetics, you know, and if you have amazing genetics, like if you're like a genetic outlier, you know, you might be one of those few guys, you know, who steps on stage and dominates. Like I think there was this 19-year-old dude last year who like,
what was his name?
Anton was his name. He won like the national show. And like he,
wait, is that the guy that they're comparing to C-Bum?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he's 19. Right, he won. He won
He looks
classic
fucking
physique.
crazy,
He has
by the
a
way.
crazy
We've
physique.
seen him in person.
It's insane. Yeah, I've stood next to him. He's very impressive. But like, this is one of those guys that is an anomaly. You know, like he has a physique that, you know, he was beating guys who were 10, 15 years older than him.
Yeah.
So this is like a genetic anomaly type shit.
And he trains like crazy too.
Right, but like the thing is, not everybody is gonna have that. You know, not everybody's going to be like, oh,
just because you're 19.
I see him. He did this. He does this. He has this coach, you know, so I should hire this coach so he can put me on that cycle so I can look like him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people have that expectation where it's just like, no, that's not really how it works.
It's so dangerous too because he is 19.
Right. And he's that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's that good.
So people his age are going to think that they could also look like him and like build a body like him and just follow the same shit.
Yeah, but keep in mind, he's literally the youngest person to ever do it. He's one of one.
Literally. Literally.
So
I even saw a comparison of his body and like C-Bum's body, and they're like 10 years apart. It's fucking crazy.
yeah, dude's gonna do well. But, you know, again, outlier. He's an outlier. You got to be real with yourself. Are you a genetic outlier? Are you that type of guy? Have you been putting in work for years? You know, this is clearly somebody who's been putting in work for a long time. This is clearly somebody who's been dialed in with his nutrition, dialed in with his training, knows technique, you know, understands how to prepare his body for a show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's clear, you know, he takes instruction very well.
Yeah.
And, you know, the reality is it takes a lot of guys a long time to get to that level. So, you know, just be real with yourself before you, go down that route. So for me, for example, like I mentioned earlier, I took many years to prepare.
Yeah, I think like people just rush into it.
Yeah.
You know?
And
like,
people were rushing me.
Yeah.
People were trying to push me. People were like, oh, you need to step on stage. You need to do this. Like, you'd be so amazing if you just competed. I had this one guy come up to me and he's just like, he was a guy at the gym. He actually sold steroids. That was his thing. Like he was a source of steroids. And he's just like, yeah, you should definitely compete, man. You do really well. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to like make sure that I'm good enough so that way I can be competitive naturally.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to do your first show. You're not going to place well. And then you're going to want to jump on. And if you get on my gear, you're going to win. So
it's an ad.
be weary of those type of guys. But I like just stuck to my guns and like, this was probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I just did what I need to do. I kept grinding, you know, I kept pushing myself. I kept following my diet. I had a very good physique for a very long time before I decided that it was time to actually prepare myself to compete. And when I did, again, like I said, I won. And a lot of that for me was like just to prove a bunch of people wrong. That's one of the reasons I did it. And also to prove that like what I believed in my head was right. And that was that. So I'm really grateful that I did take that route because I see a lot of young guys now that are just like, you know, doing very dangerous things to try to compete, trying to get that pro card, putting their body through so much at such a young age, only to be let down year after year after year. And they just continue to push because bodybuilding is a very like, if you get bit by that bug, like it's an itch that needs to be scratched. Like it's hard to stay off the stage, you know? So, and a lot of guys who are, you know, in that, they just keep going. And then eventually it just never pays off. So I just recommend guys, if you are young, please take some time to let your body like reach its genetic potential.
Don't just take a shortcut because, you know, you're going to be short on stage.
You're going to fall short.
You're going to fall short on stage.
Yeah.
For real.
So, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about where you're at with this.
So for me, I think the biggest thing, the biggest thing is also like keeping in mind that this shit is actually hard. Like it is hard. Like especially for women, we have hormones we have to deal with. Okay, there's a lot of women that actually lose their period during their prep, and that's also important to make sure that you are with the right coach that's actually going to help you ease your way back into hormonal balance. And there's so many coaches out there too that actually don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like there's a lot of, and I've had so many conversations with women that competed on stage that damaged their own bodies, their gut health, that damaged their hormones because they were prepped by a coach that didn't know how to prep a client, but just step on stage themselves. So it's like, it's really important that you actually do your research in figuring out like, who do you want to work with? Like look at their credentials, understand is this the type of person that would actually help you get to where you want to be safely and effectively, and not just rush you into like a cut that's actually aggressive. And this is what I've learned from my coach too. Shout out to Paul Revelia. This guy's a fucking, legend in like bikini bodybuilding. But anyway, I learned from him that, there are a lot of coaches out there that would literally just diet you down to like extremely low amount of calories to where it actually starts to take away from the muscle or the small amount of muscle that you have. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to come in on stage as, in great shape. You're actually just going to come in like flat, So it's like keeping that in mind. So
stringy.
Yeah. So for me, and like my opinion about like bodybuilding, I'm very new to this. I actually was thinking of like not doing it because I knew it was going to be hard. I had this whole breakthrough of realizing that it's going to be a completely different story, but I was like steering away from the hard shit that I needed to do. And I've always wanted to compete actually, but I started to distract myself with what's easy and what's opportunities that were easy and rewarding, and stopped doing it for I think it was like 2 weeks, and I started to.
It was about a month.
Was it a month?
Yeah, it was about a month.
2-3 weeks, I will say. It wasn't too long.
It wasn't that many episodes ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't that long ago, but I realized for me that what makes me feel fulfillment is actually leaning into the hard shit. And this is one of it. And actually staying aligned with myself and my values and being integral to my word. So I'm in it now, and it's actually fucking hard. Okay, I will say this. I will not sugarcoat the process of it because it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of your time. And for me, because I have a lot of responsibilities myself, I own a business. I have a team of people I need to lead. I have this personal brand that I'm building. I have a relationship I need to show up for. I have a family I need to show up for. And it's hard to balance all these different things, but you need to still show up for all these different things, So it's like, for me, it's hard because you have to commit to your meal plan, Committing to your meal plan actually takes the time out of your day to put together your meals, to weigh out your meals, to make sure everything is good. It's hard to actually force yourself to go do your cardio. It's hard to actually train hard as you're on a diet, as you're cutting down from calories, but sticking to it is the hard part. But you have to, and this is what I've been following, or I guess the motto I've been embodying is like, the less you give yourself an easy way out, the easier it actually gets. Mm-hmm. So every single time I have moments in prep right now where it's like, fuck, I hate this shit. I don't want to do cardio. I don't want to do these things. I just remind myself that I just need to keep doing it because it gets easier. Because like, for me before, good example, doing 45 minutes of cardio.
Sucks.
I fucking hated doing 20 minutes of cardio.
First time you do 45 minutes of cardio. Sucks.
It's so hard. But now I just do it every day.
Through it, yeah.
Every day. It's not hard anymore. So it's like you have to understand and prepare yourself mentally for the hard shit that requires you to actually show up for when it comes to actually getting into it.
And the cool thing about that too is like, with something like a contest preparation, it's like you're constantly raising the bar.
Yeah.
So you're constantly having to like lean in and like adapt to hard shit over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so that's like the cool part about it is like, yes, it's fucking fun. Like it's fun because you can level the fuck up if you're locked in. You can
you actually see results for the hard shit that you're putting in. That's what makes me excited despite the hard shit that's going on.
Yeah.
So like good example of that is like, it's so funny. I think I should share this conversation that me and Ben had. I am hitting everything in the nail with like my protocol that I'm on. Like I'm getting my cardio in. I'm hitting all my meals in. I'm getting my steps in. I'm getting my sleep in. But like the weight is not budging. And then me and Benjamin got into this conflict. I'm like, he said, do 14K steps, do 12K steps. And I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I don't want to do more. But I ended up pushing myself more. And now like the scale is progressing in the right direction. So it's like you have to constantly push yourself, even though you don't want to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah, you have to find new levels of grit.
You also need to be a problem solver when you're in prep versus like being attached to it emotionally in like a bad way. Like good example, it's like when I had that week of not seeing any progress despite all the efforts that I put in, my coach told me that he was disappointed with the results that we were seeing because he needs to make sure that we're progressing in the right direction. Like this isn't just like a lifestyle diet of like, oh, that's fine. Let's see how it goes next week. Like, no, it needs to be A plus B equals C. Like it needs to be like on point with everything every single week. So I realized like for me, when I got that feedback, if I was an emotional person and someone told me they're disappointed in the work that I put in, I would have just self-sabotaged in that moment. But I actually became a problem solver and be like, okay, if he's disappointed with the outcome, what can we do? Like, how can we actually improve so that next week it comes out better?
Right.
So we just did more, and then it actually turned out to be better.
And it wasn't much more.
No.
In a day. It was a little bit.
Yeah.
But
minor tweaks.
it had, she had to shift some habits around to do it.
Yeah.
Little things.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see.
So it requires you to be a problem solver. It requires you to have, the right headspace to actually be in prep.
Yeah.
You can't be that person that's such a fucking perfectionist that when you mess up, you start self-sabotaging.
Yep.
So you need to be mentally ready for it. That's an important part of it.
You have to be a fucking athlete.
Ben always talks to me about, you're an athlete now, get your water in. I'm like, stop it, we're not doing this. I'm already locked in. I've been dialed in. But he just keeps trying to add into the fucking conversation of like, you're an athlete now. This is different, like a coach. And I always tell him like, and remind him to like, babe, I'm looking for a boyfriend right now. I need my boyfriend, Ben, not Coach Ben. Thank you very much, because I already have a coach. So
I know what it is.
But I understand.
I know what it takes to win.
Yes, I get that. But yeah, anyway, not to sidetrack. So for women, it's going to be hard mentally. I think it's also important to note that you need to have a good relationship with food before you actually start getting into bodybuilding. That's like the biggest thing, because for me in the past, I want to say 2 years ago, I have been encouraged by my coach. It was a completely different coach to start competing, but I wasn't in a place where I felt good when it comes to food. Like I was still, I would have like binge eating urges. Like I would starve myself. Like I wasn't in that good place yet when it comes to food. I didn't have the awareness or understanding when it comes to my relationship with food to be in a position that I am today. So you need to understand that if you're someone who's still self-sabotaging when it comes to food, if you have a bad day and you run to the pantry, you run to the fridge, if you're having a bad day, you don't want to eat, like this might not be the right time for you to actually get into bodybuilding.
Right.
Like that's really important.
And I think too, like I'll just kind of segue, like for guys as well, just because you say I'm competing, just because you pick out a show date, doesn't mean you're magically going to start adhering to a nutrition and training protocol. I remember there's this one dude who reached out to me. He said he wanted to compete. And we were having a conversation about it. And he had never competed before. And he mentioned something to me. He's like, well, I want to do this show on this date. I was like, okay, well, looking at where you're at, we need to get started now on getting the right habits. He's like, well, what if we start in like 3 weeks so I can, just get all this stuff out of my system? I was like, that right there is like the reason, like that's why most people fail.
Mentally, you're not there.
You're not ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and that was one of the times where I had to realize, I was like, I would not be the best coach for you with where you're at right now.
And that's really responsible for you to be a coach to say like, I don't want to take you in as a client because I mean, this person's results is your reputation.
Right.
Too.
And well, it's just also too, it's just like, I know that like for me, if you still have to get things out of your system, like I'm not the guy who's going to be able to coach you through that.
If you still need to get your ducks in a row to start the show, then you're not mentally ready to actually do it. Yeah,
because it's intense. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like she was saying, it's hard. And like I said, you have to be an athlete. You have to push yourself. You have to, understand training. You have to really track your training. You have to get scientific behind it. It's not just go to the gym and throw weight around.
Working out and training is not the same.
Yeah, you're not just like, I see guys who just do random workouts during their preps. My training is dialed the fuck in to the rep, to the set, like to the exercises. I mean, if I'm not at a gym, I might have to make some substitutions and whatnot, but like, for the most part, I'm not just like, oh, what am I going to do today? What am I going to train? I've literally I follow people's preps and they're just like, oh yeah, like today I think I'm going to train this. Like, no, I have a fucking program.
Yeah. You need to have a dialed in program.
Designed for me to win.
To create that look that you want once you step on stage.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's important to have everything set in place when you are competing.
And, to each their own, but like, for me, I think like for guys, especially, dude, like you got to understand, like when it comes to training, like you have to push yourself still.
Yeah. Think
about it like this. You're going to be tired when you're in the gym. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to lose your gains. You're going to get like weaker. It's like, not necessarily. You don't necessarily have to get fucking weaker. During like
that's also a mistake that I see a lot of people
you don't
make.
necessarily have to.
Yeah, when they're like, oh, I'm eating less calories, so automatically you're convincing yourself that you're gonna be weaker. But you just need to go into the gym and fucking perform the shit out of it.
Right.
Like still show up and train as hard as you can with what you can.
Yeah. For the full last month of prep, like I was still keeping my numbers consistent. Except for like there were times when we would have back down periods where it's just like, okay, this week I want you to kind of pull it light on this certain exercises. But I think in peak week, I was still like hitting like what my max was, like on like bench press. I think on my first one, like my first prep, I remember I was still repping out 315 on the bench in peak week. Like you don't have to, succumb to this idea that, oh, well, shit, I'm just going to get weaker or this is going to happen. That's like, that is a losing mentality.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
You don't need to adjust your training unless you need to.
Yeah.
Unless you're not seeing results, unless you're like, I always say like the only time you need to actually dial back on that training is if you're not recovering in the capacity that you should be recovering.
Right.
It's like you're too fatigued that you can't train right the next day.
Right.
Like that's the only time. I learned that the hard way. Okay. Yep. And that's the only way I would dial it back down because I've trained fucking hard. And you don't need to psych yourself out into like, oh, less food, less weight on the fucking machine, or I don't need to train as hard because I'm cutting. Like, no, train the same with the same mentality as when you're going into a build.
Yep.
And just show up more and just actually push yourself hard. There's so many ways for you to push yourself hard too in the gym. It's not just like lifting heavy shit. Yeah. It's also like, can you perform better? Can you execute this exercise right? Can you lower down the tempo? Can you actually like slow it down?
Can I get my mechanics on point?
Yeah. Feel it on the right areas. Actually have a better mind-muscle connection. Like there's many ways for you to actually tweak your training to where you're still showing up better every single time you go to the gym.
Yep. Facts. Have that shit dialed the fuck in. Understand too that it's not a death sentence when you start like prep. I think a lot of people are like, oh well, starting prep, so you
should be excited that you're doing it.
So yeah, guys, like fun's over. The fun has just begun. That's
what I'm saying. Like, if you have that mentality of like, oh fuck, like I don't want to be in it, you find it as a toxic place. How do you expect to fucking do well?
Yeah, exactly.
If you find it as a punishment rather than a decision that you're making to actually win.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're dreading the process, like good luck.
It's not for you.
Yeah. Well, not yet.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't started competing this year because I'm just not there right now.
And you have to make that decision too. Like we're not saying like, oh my God, you need to go all in all right now. We're saying like everyone's going through a different phase. You might be in a phase right now where you're like, I want to be more in lifestyle rather than getting into bodybuilding. And that's completely fine. Like I went through that phase where I'm like, I don't care about fucking lifting heavier shit and seeing progress every single week. I just want to enjoy training. I just want to be active. I just want to enjoy food more rather than like sticking to a meal plan. Like you go through different phases when it comes to your fitness journey. And you ultimately, you get to decide when you actually want to do it, if that interests you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what, like you said, be real with yourself. That's what I said earlier. And another thing that I did want to like touch on a little bit deeper was, don't just go on a contest prep for the sake of just, getting ripped.
Yeah.
Because that can cause a lot of problems. Like if your goal is just like, oh, I'm just going to get fucking ripped. And so I'm going to step on stage. Like again, it's very hard. It's very regimented. You're essentially getting to the point where you're like damn near starving yourself. you're starving your body essentially. And then when you hop off stage, if your only goal was just like, oh, I wanted to get shredded, or I wanted to step on stage, or I wanted to show off my physique, you could be setting yourself up for, you know, a really bad post-show rebound. So make sure that if you are in a post-show rebound is essentially like when you have dieted as hard as you do for a show, your body's very sensitive to food, very sensitive to an increase in food. So when you start eating more food, your body's going to start putting on fat fast. There's plenty of guys, so many guys that I know who within 48 hours of a show are up, you know, 25, 30, like this is real. Within 48 hours of a show are within like up like 40 pounds. Like there was Larry Wheels. He's a popular influencer. You know Larry Wheels? He's
Heard of him, yeah.
He's a popular influencer, but he did a show. One of the things was like, what was people talked more about his post-show weight gain than his actual show.
That's crazy.
It's like, oh, Larry Wheels put on 40, 50 pounds immediately after his show, but I didn't see any headlines of how he did at his show.
You don't want to put yourself in that position.
Right. It's really hard on your body. Like that is hard on your body. So,
and this is why I mentioned like you need to have a good relationship with food getting into it, because like that's where when you restrict yourself with food, you're going to have binge eating urges. And this is what we've seen with a lot of like competitors is like they start binge eating, start eating all these different shit because they're like, oh, here's what happens. Okay. When you restrict yourself with food, you're basically training your brain to think you're never going to have this food ever again. So when you have the flexibility or have the chance to actually eat this food, that's when you start having this scarcity way of thinking of, oh, I'm going to eat all of this now because I'm never going to have them ever again. And this is where binge eating starts to happen.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. If you're someone who still struggles with your relationship with food, with binge eating and overly restricting, like this is not the place to actually start getting into it.
And back to my point about like, you know, because that kind of also ties in with just if you're trying to just do a show just for the sake of getting shredded. Like if you want to be competitive, you should be in good shape before you start your show prep. Like you should be in relatively good shape. You shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't look like you don't work out and then expect to be like, you know, looking godly in 16, 20 weeks. It's possible.
You're going to have to grind.
But it's very unlikely and it's not fun when you do it that way.
No.
So again, take the time, allow your body to mature, put on some muscle so that, you know, try to minimize your fat gain in your growth phases. So that way when you do decide to do a show, it's fun.
It's not much of a dread to actually cut.
Every time I've done a show, I have so much fun, you know? And, you know, a lot of times people will complain about how I'm just ranting now. A lot of times people will just like complain about how prep is hard or like, it's just like draining. I think there's like one day, that I remember prep like that I can actually be like, this day was horrible. Like out of all the preps that I've done, all the 4 shows, one day. That was,
and again, everyone's like different too, though. Because like there are some people that literally just dread their prep. There's some people I fucking love this shit.
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself, if you're the type of person who's like, I fucking hate this shit, but you're still able to show up, like that's still good.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna expect your experience to be the same as Ben's.
Yeah.
Like I want to say, like
it's not gonna be the same as mine.
Yeah. It's a personalized experience.
Yeah.
But you have to keep in mind and like understand like why are you actually doing this. I think that's the important thing. Like a good way to finish this episode is actually understanding why are you doing this.
Yeah.
Because if it's just for funsies, it's not gonna get you to where you want to be. You're not gonna grind harder to actually do well on stage.
Yeah, because when it's not fun, you're gonna stop.
Yeah. Why even bother to put yourself in a position? Because again, like we're not gonna be giving you guys the bullshit or the fluff. Like you gotta eat the same shit every fucking day, even if it's not your favorite thing. You're gonna train as hard as you can. You're probably gonna be in the gym for 3 fucking hours, sometimes even 4, because you have to practice posing. There's so many things that you have. It's a whole ass responsibility. Think about it as another full-time job that you need to do.
Yep.
And it's also expensive because groceries,
it's expensive.
Your suit, tanning, all these different things that you need to do, it's expensive, right? So it's no bullshit, no fluff. It's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy. Yep. So are you willing? Is your reason behind why you're doing it bigger than the shit that you need to do? Is it more important? Is it compelling enough for you to actually do it?
Yep.
If it is, then yes, you are going to do well.
Yep, exactly.
Because you're going to commit to it, because you know on the other side of the hard shit and all the time, energy, and money that you have to spend, it's fulfilling for you. Yeah, so you have to have a big reason why.
Yeah.
It's important. Not just like, oh, for experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at a position where you have like where you have the luxury of it, just doing prep for an experience, because it is a luxury, then go for it. Most people don't have that luxury. You know what I'm saying?
In this economy? Kidding me? Not in this economy for sure. Shit. Everyone's complaining about $2 more on groceries.
Yeah, shit.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, because groceries are fucking expensive.
I know it is. We literally spend like over like $300 every time we go to a grocery store.
Yeah, it's.
In a week.
I don't want to talk. I
Okay.
don't want to talk about how much money we spend on groceries.
Okay, let's not talk about it.
It's a lot. But
Hurts
like
the wallets. Let's just say that.
it's annoying. Yeah, I guess I wanted to kind of hear about, aside from leaning into hard shit, like what's your why behind like wanting to like step on stage? Like I know you mentioned that you wanted to step on stage like a while ago. And you've been wanting to step on stage for a while. Like, what is that? Like, why?
I think my biggest why is actually I know when I lean into the hard shit, I discover a new version of myself.
Yeah.
It's just a new version of myself. I know, and it makes me feel good. Actually, the experience for me has been great because, again, I like seeing results when I know I'm doing the right shit.
Yeah.
I like to be, again, that problem solver that I told you about. Like, I can say that mentally I am in a completely different level right now when I first started thinking about doing it. Because when I first started doing it long time ago, I was like, oh yeah, I just want to do it for experience. Now it's like I actually want to do well, and I'm well equipped. I have the luxury to actually do it. I'm in an era or a position to actually do well. I have a coach that actually guides me well, and my big reason why is I just want to unleash a new version of myself. That's my big reason why.
You feel like you got some untapped potential there?
Yeah, I have. Well, let's just say for me, I wasn't even planning on doing bodybuilding at all. I've just been told like you should do it. Same thing with you. Like you have people seeing your potential, and then you start to question like, damn, like what if I do have good potential? And that's how I felt. And then I started like actually going all in, and that's how I kind of it clicked with me, where I'm like, oh, this actually is something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's like my biggest reason is literally just I just want to unleash this baddie inside of me that I know she's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
I know, because like my coach also told me the same thing. Like when you are in prep, like you are more aligned because every day you have commitments that you're actually following through with. And this increases your confidence. And the more you're confident, it bleeds through other responsibilities or other aspects of your life. So I feel that. Like when I wake up, I do the shit that I need to do. Sometimes I feel good when I actually wake up before Ben. Because like, I don't know, I just like to start the day right. And like I get my steps in at the end of the day. It's like you're constantly like leveling up throughout the entire day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I did this, great. I did this, great. I did this. And I feel good. I'm not doing this for other people. I'm actually doing it for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I really appreciate that. I just love that feeling of like, I remember like when I go through prep, it's just like all day. It's just win.
Yeah, like you're literally
like you're
positioning
winning
yourself to
all
win.
day.
And that's the thing too. It's like the win is not just like you receiving the reward on stage. The win is like, what did you do throughout the entire process?
And I can tell you, like, it's the getting the trophy is like the least gratifying part of the whole process.
Yeah, I wanted to share like when Ben was like, this was in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When Ben was like gonna get his pro card, I think he had this moment where he was like, he kind of like doubted himself for a second. And I literally reminded him because I saw him go through his prep throughout the entire time. Like, you did not miss a step.
So what happened was I went to tanning.
Okay.
And I saw all
it's story time by Papa Bob.
I was just like, all right, I saw all the guys. And I was just like, dude, these guys look good.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody always looks good because you actually finally see what another good looking person looks like when you're like getting tanned up because you've been looking at yourself the whole time.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing other people in person, like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, like, everybody's looking at everybody like that.
Yeah.
So like I got back and I was like, I looked at Megan and I said, Megan, I don't think I'm gonna win.
Yeah. I was like, who the fuck is this person right now?
I was like, I don't think I'm gonna win.
And I literally told him from the day you started your prep to where you are today, you did not miss anything. So no matter what the outcome is, you won.
Yeah.
Like you literally won because you did everything you can to get to where you are today.
Yeah. And that like reminded me real quick. I was like, you know what? I don't know. I was just bullshit. I know I've been working my ass off. Then I looked at myself again. I was like, ain't nobody fit to beat this shit. And then like, but like, it was like, the thing is like, sometimes I needed that reminder to be like, I fucking went in. I went the fuck in we did a rush prep. We only did 14 weeks. So we had to go in. And the last 3 weeks, it's like we had to pull some shit because we did not look good 3 weeks out. And it just reminded me of everything. And like that confidence that I had, like from her just like reminding me that, like, it just like flipped a switch. And it was like, and I was like, okay, you're right. I know I got this, like, because I've had it the whole time. And then when I got on stage and like when I won, it was more of like a, and then, but like when I think about that process, I don't think about, whenever they call my name as the winner or whenever they moved me to the center. I knew that was going to happen before we stepped on stage. I said it was going to happen. Like I said it. And when it happened, I was like, okay, cool. This is what we planned for. And then when we got off stage, I was like, okay, we got it. I was happy. I was very happy, but like, I was happy because it went exactly the way that I planned for it to go. Not because I fucking got moved to the center. It was like, this is exactly what I prepared for. This is every fucking move that I made played out the way that I wanted it to play out because I did the fucking work, had the game plan, executed it to damn near perfection, and the vision was fulfilled. So it was cool.
Yep.
It was very cool.
So happy I got to experience that.
That shit was lit.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a fun time.
Now Benjamin is going to be the stage dad.
I got to be stage dad. I've never been stage dad, so this is going to be different.
For mine, it's going to be this year, end of this year, so it's going to be...
Yeah. And then I'll be competing again soon.
Yep.
We're going for Olympia 2025.
Putting it out there with
Olympia
confidence.
2025.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So yeah, you guys, I hope this was helpful. We literally broke down a lot of shit and shared our story and our experiences too. And hopefully this gives you insight on like if you're thinking about competing for bodybuilding. This shit ain't easy, you know what I mean?
It's not.
It helps when you have a partner that actually
someone who supports you.
pushes you.
Yeah, like that helps a lot. Or like if you're just like, like if you don't have a support, I don't know what it's like to not have a supportive partner, but like, as long as you have some type of support system, Yeah. But like you got to get all the negative energy from around you. Get away from that and just
focus on you. Yeah, lock in.
It's literally, it's all about you. Like, and you got to think about that too. It's literally all about you.
This is your time to shine.
You literally glaze up and tan up and get critiqued.
Get naked
get
on
critiqued
stage.
by a panel. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's basically like, I think Cedric's the one that said this. Like, think about it as like your artwork that you're actually showing.
Yeah.
You took your time to build that shit up. It's like what's it called? Like a statue that you're building. You're chipping off. This is you like doing your cut. Doing your build was you like building that whole clay up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Molding that whole shit up. And then you chipping away is basically you doing your cut. Like you have to make sure that every detail is there.
Yeah.
And that's you actually putting in every fucking work, going all in, not missing. So that once you actually present it, it does well.
Yeah. And then the presentation is just so much fun too.
Yeah.
You've got to have your posing down, that shit's fun. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Knowing your angles, knowing how to like battle out on stage. Like there's people standing next to you. You got to know what they look like so you can position yourself so that way you can literally out angle them. It's a thing. It's a whole game. I ain't going to give you all the secrets because
anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and learned a lot from this. If you guys want to support us on our podcast, The Strong and Sexy Show, go and leave us a 5-star review so that way we can continuously grow the show and give you guys more value like this. And you guys can find Benjamin at
BenPruitt_fit on Instagram and TikTok.
And for me, it's MEAGNUNEZ, Meg Nunez, on all social media platforms. And if you guys want to see more of this, go ahead and also follow our YouTube and our Instagram, Strong and Sexy Show.
The Strong and Sexy Show.
All right. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, fam. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you love today's show, don't keep that shit to yourself. Share it with a friend.
And if you want to see more of us, hit that subscribe button. And if you're that obsessed with us, it's Strong and Sexy Show on all social media platforms. We'll see you in the next one.